From crease to crease and corner to corner, Bettor Hockey Now is NHL fantasy and betting done better. Step into the dot for Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network.
Happy New Year, everyone. 2024 officially underway as of yesterday. And another, still the same season of BHN here on BSN and Fantasy Alarm YouTube pages, but still rolling along here, just approaching the midway point in the NHL season. I am at Pucking Thoughts, Adam Bernard. The man to my right, Mr. at Ant Rivera 86, Anthony Rivera, and the man below me, Christopher Morais at Fuzzy Chris 91. Had a nice New Year with the dog, it sounds like.
I mean, Milo was very happy to ring in the new year. He had a tough time staying up, though, because he was ready to go to bed. He was ready to pass out, but he still had a good time. I rewarded him with a cookie at midnight. He was very happy as well, and then he proceeded to want to go to bed.
Sounds about right. It was a big day. He had the Winter Classic.
He did have the Winter Classic. He did. He watched half of it because he didn't care for all of it. And to be fair, it wasn't the most exciting spectacle of the year, so I don't blame him for wanting to pass out midway through.
Yeah. And how was your New Year?
Stayed home with the family over and just watched everything from my house. I do not like going out for New Year's. I will never go to Times Square for New Year's, although it looked pretty tame from what I saw. It didn't seem like there was that many people out on the square. I don't know if they like cut off certain sections, but it didn't seem like a lot of people were there. But I don't mind. I like staying home and hanging out at the house, eating a lot of food, and just enjoying my family's company. So that's how I spend my New Year's.
I celebrate, even though I live on the West Coast, I celebrate East Coast New Year's because let's face it, that's when everybody's doing it anyway. And making it to midnight's not always easy anymore. So, so it was a quiet day at home. I actually got to be home with my daughter for the most of the day and relax. So that was nice. But yeah, spent New Year's Eve at home, did the East Coast New Year's thing at 9:00 local. And then, of course, New Year's Day, besides the college football playoffs and all the bowl games, means it is time for the Winter Classic. And as Chris mentioned, it was not the most entertaining of games, but nonetheless, the Kraken emerged victorious 3-0 in a game that we all expected to go under. The total is 6. Vegas is kind of, meandered their way through the last few weeks where, this game kind of, Seattle was going to get it up for this game for sure. And Joey Decord gets the first shutout in Winter Classic history. So it'll be memorable for that, if nothing else. But, in terms of outdoor games in general, do we like them? Too many, just right amount? Like, where do we stand on this?
I would do one. I would do just the Winter Classic.
Okay.
The Stadium Series, I feel like, is a knockoff. I feel like it's the outlet version of a premium brand. Like it's. I get what you're trying to do, and I get it's more outdoor games, which is fun and it's nice, but it loses its appeal at some point. The more you have of them, the more you lose the appeal because they're not as. I don't want to say rare. I think it's nice that it's January 1st. You ring in the new year. It was nice to see Vegas and St. Louis. Vegas and Seattle do it. Two of the newer teams in the league. Beautiful, spectacle and everything. It was very well done. I loved it from an entertainment standpoint. But yeah, I wouldn't do more than one. I wouldn't milk this.
I think there's just enough. I think that 2 to 4 range is fine. You had the one towards the beginning of the season. You have always the one on New Year's, and then you have the Stadium Series coming up in February. So I enjoy the fact that they're spread out. I know that this helps the NHL out a whole lot because you're selling out these stadiums that have a lot more seats than some of these arenas do, and you're selling merchandise, new jerseys. I'm still waiting for the Devils to come out with theirs. You saw that we talked about Seattle and Vegas's jersey last week. I'm pretty sure people were buying that as well. The crowd was alive in Seattle for this, and that's huge for them. You talk about Vegas, who's kind of rolling through the rest of the season so far. They've built up the equity to, kind of lose a couple of these games, but Seattle in a kind of a must-win game here. I know it's early, but in this atmosphere with the crowd in Seattle behind them, They really needed to win this game, and you never know. This could be a launching point for them, which they are, I think, if I look at the standings correctly, 1 point out of the final spot behind Arizona, 2 points behind Nashville, which, I don't want to say that I have the most confidence that they'll win the final 2 spots, but Seattle has a chance to get back in this.
Plus 300 to make the playoffs, or minus 440 to miss right now. The odds there, because that wild card picture is so open in the West, especially with, we'll talk about what's going on with Minnesota in a little bit. I don't think it's maybe, like you said, maybe this is the win that gets them going. Winning the Winter Classic in front of a crowd, and Seattle fans they're rabid fans, whether it's the Seahawks, whether it's the Sounders, when the NBA puts a team back there, if the Mariners ever consistently make the playoffs again, they love their team. So if, maybe this gets Seattle going on a little bit of a roll here and they start to establish themselves in the West. Now, going back to the amount of Winter Classic games, I think 2 is probably enough. And here's why. I think you do one that features 2 American teams, and you do your Heritage Classic in Canada with 2 Canadian teams. You just rotate them. You do the Heritage Classic somewhat earlier in the season like you did. Then you do the Winter Classic New Year's Day. And I think you can leave it at that. Unless if you are going to do a stadium series, because of the point Chris made where it feels like it's a lesser version of the Winter Classic, you have to brand it in a way where, like, not to say that there are like classes of teams in the NHL, but clearly the Detroit, Chicago's, Pittsburgh's, Phillies, and the Rangers of the world are going to get Winter Classic games over the Columbuses, Carolinas, Minnesotas of the world. So maybe you try and use that stadium series to feature those teams that don't normally get a chance to. Other than that, otherwise it just feels like an additional outdoor game for the sake of having it. Now, I love it. I love the spectacle. It's nice to have like a hockey game where it's like big focus. I feel like the football stadiums are a little better than the baseball stadiums from a sightline standpoint. If you said you're going in February, so you'll be able to tell us. I've never been to one in a football stadium. I've been to the Rangers, Flyers in Philadelphia. Say again?
Was it a Yankee Stadium? I think it was, right?
So I went to 2 at Yankee Stadium, and then I went the Rangers and the Islanders, Rangers, Devils, and then I went to Rangers, Flyers in Philly. So I haven't been to a football stadium one. So I am curious about that. But
I went to the one in Foxborough, which, by the way, great spectacle, as you said. I guess maybe I can change my tune a little bit. It's a new year, new me kind of thing. I'll take new stuff and be like, you know what, roll with it. That's true. I will say this though, you're about to get a lot of angry emails from the good folks at Minnesota for you grouping them into the, I won't say lower level of fan club, but the state of hockey is going to have a conversation.
It's not level of fandom, it's ratings appeal. And I know they like to pretend that Minnesota's a big ratings appeal, and they do get big ratings in Minnesota when they play, but that's not a team that, somebody flipping around on New Year's Day is going to stop and watch unless they go to those green and yellows full time, the old North Star colors, because those are
beautiful. Especially when Marc-Andre Fleury puts the pads with it as well.
Yeah.
Why not throw them? You mentioned the Heritage Classic just being teams from Canada. Why not throw them in there along with like teams from like the original 6, like the Rangers and Detroit, instead of it just being all Canadian teams rotating every year? Because then you're really just, if you're going to just do the 2 games and then you're really just having the 4, 5, 6 teams up there playing and rotating, you're not getting it to other teams that are around. Like, obviously Arizona is not going to get into the stadium series anytime soon.
First of all, Canada is Canada.
Yeah.
Right. That's the number one, right? We say a boot. We have Tim Hortons coffee. I feel like you can get there's lots of good marketing there. Second, there are, with the exception of the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens, there are some good Canadian hockey teams that could put on a really good spectacle that I think a lot of people would watch. Like, I know it's hard to sell Canada to the United States, even though, Canada, hockey, Canada go together. But I do feel like and maybe I'm biased, but I feel like Edmonton and Vancouver in a Heritage Classic, I'm sure the north of the United States would watch, but I think you can convince like the Midwest a little bit, maybe California, those good hockey markets to watch.
Well, it's all how you market it.
I'm not saying that it's not an appeal to us. Like, we're going to look, I have the Canadians from their Winter Classic t-shirt on right now. And like, I'll watch those games. I'm saying, like, once you go through the rotation of all these teams playing each other, then there has to come a point where you're kind of, because like you may have the appeal now, but you may lose the appeal down the line if the same teams are playing each other. And let's say they're not good, like Edmonton and Calgary were not good at the start of the season. So,
Correct.
that gets to be outside of the jerseys and the history between the two teams. Them not playing well is a hard sell for, I guess, the casual hockey fan.
Well, maybe that's why you give the U.S. 2 games and Canada 1, so that way it's kind of like an even pool all around. Obviously, not perfectly even, but I think if you do, and if you spread it, you have to spread them out too. Like, you do one in like late October, early November, then you do one on New Year's Day, and then you can't do it too late in the season because you don't want that affecting playoff standings and stuff like that. But somewhere in that mid to late February window. And that way it's nice and spread out. And then every couple of months. And then after that third one, it's 2 months later is the playoffs. So there you go. So
I'm
I think
saying it too. That's as much as I'll compromise today. That's as much as I've changed. I can't go to 3.
Can't go to 3. Well, okay. So I guess I'll be the compromise here between the two. And I'll say 1-1-1. And you just got to figure out a way to market the Stadium Series a little bit differently. Because obviously New Year's Day, you want to put your best foot forward. You want to put teams that have that'll have ratings and things like that. So you have to figure out how to market that third one, even though we know it's like the Payless Shoes version of the Winter Classic.
Outside of the initial, I guess, press conference, I really haven't heard much out of the Stadium Series except for the fact that the Jonas Brothers are going to be doing a concert. Outside of that, I have heard nothing. And we're talking about Rangers, Devils, Philly. Like, I mean,
are you up to date on your Jonas Brothers songs?
I guess I'm going to have to be.
Okay.
I'm still waiting on a jersey. That's my problem. Like, what is the jersey going to be? Like,
help Anthony spend money.
Yes.
NHL. Come on.
I want to spend.
Card out.
See, I like what they did with that, though, is they're going to get 2 games out of one facility. And maybe that's how you differentiate the Stadium Series and expedite it, is you make it a weekend somewhere and you just take the closest teams from the area and you do something out of it. Now, maybe that's the way to go. But it is weird how we haven't seen any, because you would have thought that they would have revealed those jerseys in time for Christmas, just so people could go out and buy them as Christmas gifts. So we'll see what happens there. But I do like when they, the AHL teams come in and use the arena, the stadium ice afterwards, like get bang for your buck. Like I said, maybe that's a way to do it. You make the Stadium Series, that February event, a weekend.
Yep.
That we just solved the problem, folks. There you go. Now, let's go to the other discussion here for quick hits. We can talk World Juniors, and not to be like flippant about it, but how much do we really care? And I'm curious how much Canada cares now that Czechia took out Canada in the World Juniors. To me, that's how you determine if a country cares about something or not. When your country is out of it, are you still interested? Are you still watching? So, Canada and hockey, like Chris said earlier, go hand in hand like peanut butter and jelly. Will you still be watching USA, Finland, and Sweden, Czechia in the World Juniors now that Canada is out?
I will turn it on. I will say this. I will neither confirm nor deny it if I watched hockey during work hours today. I will say, though, I was devastated when I saw that puck go in because just how well Canada played in the second and third period. They played a lot better. They looked out of sync in that first period, and then the second and third they come out. And to lose in that fashion where it just hits a defenseman and goes in, absolutely crushing. And I may need a day and a half to recover. But I will watch these. Like, there are lots of great. I love watching kids play. I love this tournament, and I love kids because they have no care for defense. They are willing to toe drag release in the middle of every slot pass. Everything is coming high slot. Everything is like a defenseman just like crosses over 3 times backwards, stops, toe drags, and wants to shoot. And I'm like, yes, give me that. Because in the NHL, we don't see that, right? Defenseman gets it, chips it down the board, you cycle, you kind of grind away at it. And these kids are just pure skill, and I love it. And I mean, there's still interest, right? So the Montreal Canadiens have a lot of good prospects that are still playing on the U.S. team. To me, there's enough to watch and care and say, yes, I want to see this. Am I going to go out of my way to block my day and tell somebody, no, I'm not going to go out because I want to watch, USA Finland or USA Sweden? No. But will I turn on the TV and have that going and pay attention and see what happens? Yes.
I don't even know what channel it's on. Like, if it's on NHL Network, honestly, if it's on
Probably,
any,
yeah.
I don't have NHL Network, so I won't. If it's on there, I won't be able to watch it unless it's like once we get to like Olympic hockey, then I start paying a little more attention. I can't do it all. I can't do it all. I wish I could. And all of my highlights, I'll either watch on YouTube or I'll get Chris's tweets because that's where it's at.
There weren't many, but
Yeah.
I did see a lot of people taking a victory lap when Canada was down 2-0. And I'm like, hey, this tournament, like I've been on both ends of watching Canada blow leads to the Russians in the third period. So I was like, this is not how this goes. That just like strap in. And it was a great game. It's just crushing that hockey could crush your soul so quickly. It's a cruel game.
Chris gets you emotionally invested when you read his tweets. Like you can feel the pain,
Yep.
like radiating through X when he's tweeting.
I'm glad I can deliver that to the, I'm assuming the 300 real people that follow, not the 700 bots. Thanks, Elon.
Hey, bots have feelings too.
I mean, look, they're very interested in everything I tweet hockey, so that's good.
I'll say this: when the United States has a chance to really go the way, and when if there are team players on that are draft prospects of your team, that certainly piques your interest a little bit more. It benefits from the fact that it's on during the day. We don't always get live sports on during the day, even out on the West Coast where things start later. So that helps too. So the year the U.S. won it, when I forget what year it was, when Charlie McAvoy was on the team, yeah, I was into it. But like Anthony said, there's only time for so much. And as you get older, it's like I can watch NHL hockey and I can watch, college hockey to a degree, but I can't be doing World Junior. Like you can't be on top of everything and everywhere at once. So that's one of the things that as I got older, fell by the wayside. But yeah, I definitely paid attention a little bit more when I was younger. And, once we get to the finals, if it's on at the right time and it's from the right country, sure, why not?
Both of you next year for Christmas are getting a World Junior calendar with the channel that you can watch it on in the U.S., depending on who your cable provider is. Both of
like
you.
the tearaway 365-day.
I will custom make it in Excel, color code it, whatever you guys need, because I feel like you guys are just missing out on the pure greatness of watching these kids. I don't maybe it's just me, but I love this tournament. I love it. I don't go out for Boxing Day because I'm like, we go.
There is something to be said for when kids are playing. We call them kids, but they are kids basically. Yeah, you can't match what they're playing for. Like they want you're seeing that youthful energy and pride but it's the country pride mixed in with that. And like it's tough to really match that. Even if you got the pros going out there in the Olympics, you have a gold medal. That's probably the closest thing for them. And it will be nice when the NHL does go back to that. I know the Winter Olympics the past couple of times have been on parts of the planet where it's just not friendly to break up a season to do it when the NHL is losing money and when you're not going to really get those TV ratings when games are live at 3 a.m. But I will say the Vancouver Olympics with the goal with Crosby breaking the Americans' heart, like that right, like come on, that alone should tell you like bring the pros back and let them play.
Correct. I'm in.
Let's do it. Let's hope they come back soon. Let's hope they take care of business there. Now time for a little fantasy focus before we switch over and talk some Minnesota Wild hockey. First guy I want to bring up here, and we know the Devils' goaltending situation has been less than ideal this season. Nico Daws stopped 25 of 27 shots in their 6-2 win against Ottawa on Friday night. Akira Schmid was sent down to AHL Utica. And they recalled Daws, who had a .929 save percentage in 3 AHL games this season. How much do you think we'll see of Daws in terms of like how many opportunities is this guy going to get with Vanacek here? Do you think he's going to get an extended look, or is this just maybe to send a message to Schmid like get your shit together?
Maybe a little bit of both. I think that depending on how Vanacek plays, because it hasn't been great all season long. This Daws is going to get an opportunity to play, and I don't want to get on the bandwagon just yet because he did beat the Senators, and the Senators are one of the worst teams in hockey, maybe the worst. But yeah, I need to see more. I need to see a couple more games. The Devils' schedule has not been too kind to them. I can't remember the stat, but when they play back-to-back games, their record is not good. So we'll see what happens with Daws if he can spark. But it's also, we've talked about this before, the defense plays part into this as well. If the Devils' defense is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, it affects the goaltending. And those have gone hand in hand all season long and hasn't been the best. Luke Hughes has kind of really stepped it up. Simon Nemec as well has played well and gotten a lot of minutes. They're all doing this without Dougie Hamilton. So we'll see what happens with Nico Daws if he gets more opportunity. I think he will if, Vanacek continues to play that way he's been playing all season. He gives you spurts of man, maybe he's back. And then it's, oh, we're back to the, same game we've been seeing all year. So I hope that he gets some playing time. I don't know what this means for Schmid if he's done, but I think at some point we'll see Schmid back.
I don't care at this point. It's just like it's the rotation of the the subpar chocolates at this point. Like you get the coconut one and you get like the other two that you don't really like, and you keep trying to rotate it, and you're like, okay, but none of it is good. Like none of these, like even if Daws has done well in the AHL, that's good, but it doesn't necessarily mean it translates to NHL success. And like he still has to play in front of the same defense or in front of the same team that has continued to lack commitment to playing a full 200-foot game, to play based on the goalie that you have. Like if your goalie can't make saves, you can't take risks. And that's just like hockey's a team game and you got to play within that team. It's no different than, a team that comes in, or let's say, great example, Seattle. Seattle doesn't have any traditional superstar players. So they play within the system and they play it to a T. And that's why they are, they've had some success here. Decorta's stopping the puck and they still play well defensively because, I mean, even if it was outdoor, like Vegas didn't have very many scoring chances. They didn't come out here and just dominate, or they didn't have grade A chances. They were just there. But I feel like the Devils are not doing that. I feel like this is a team that believes that they can go out there and outscore their opponent, but that's just not the case because their goalie's not making the save. So I want Daws to do well because that would be good, especially if you're trying to pick up a goalie here in fantasy if you need one. But like the other two couldn't do it. Why would you be any different? You know what I mean? Like I understand the optimism, but I'm going to be skeptical.
And before we move on to the next player, what aspect of the Devils has frustrated you more this year? Timo Meier or the goaltending carousel?
I'm going to say Timo Meier. We kind of knew after the playoff series with the Rangers and definitely against Carolina as well that there was this concern, and the whole talk during the offseason was, could the Devils land Connor Hellebuyck and kind of solidify themselves as a cup contender? That didn't happen. Hellebuck's back in Winnipeg, and you're seeing what he's doing there with that Winnipeg team. And now we're at a point where not only the Devils need goaltending, but there's other playoff teams like Toronto and Carolina. These teams also need goaltending. Whether they get it or not is another thing. But the goaltending, we knew what we were getting, and I kind of knew. The thing that sucks is that the defense has also kind of fell prey to this. I keep going back to the defense, but they're a part of this struggle that the Devils. There hasn't been any. I don't want to say lack of patience, but there hasn't been any discipline with the entire team. And like Chris said, they hope to outscore you, and certain teams can do that with a competent goalie, and the Devils don't have that right now. And they lose some scoring with Timo Meier not being able to score. And I don't want to bring up Huberdeau, but that it could get that ugly. I hope it doesn't, and I don't think it will, but that there's talks about that right now. And Timo, when I went to the game, he scored and he started getting on this roll, and then he got hurt again. And now we're back to square one. So now he's going to have to get healthy. We're going to have to see for him to be patient to see him come back to play. And I don't know if the Devils aren't winning a lot of games and getting themselves into a playoff position, if fans are going to be patient. I mean, they're not patient with Lindy Ruff. I doubt they'll be patient with Timo Meier.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Like you said, like Myers looked like he was finally starting to get on that roll to get him going and go on a run where he kind of makes up for lost time a little bit, and then just like you said, back to square one. So, it'll be interesting to see how the Devils handle the trade deadline in terms of obviously where they are in the standings. If they try to make a move to make a push, how much flexibility they have, or they kind of just hamstrung there. Now, staying in the Metropolitan Division, Adam Fantilli, another guy that maybe you could look at for a waiver wire acquisition, showing signs of a breakout with a 3-game point streak. He's got points in 5 of his last 6. He had 13 points in 14 games in December. And he's, he covers multiple categories. He can block, he can hit, he shoots the puck. Imagine if Johnny Gaudreau ever got going. So, and he's definitely a hold candidate if you have a keeper league there of any sort, depending on how many spots you have. But he's a guy that's slowly starting to come out here, and I think he's somebody that's worth merits taking a look at and adding to your roster.
One of the lone bright spots in that second to last place Columbus Blue Jackets team right now, and I'm surprised that people didn't kind of get Fantilli towards the end of the draft, as someone to stash away a little bit, maybe more in the keeper league, but. Was it a keeper league or just a regular?
No, it was like a late round flyer. Like, all right, fine. Like, they're keeping. There's no way they're going to send him down. He's going to start the season up. They're going to give him every chance to play. He's going to have to be miserable to get sent down after 9 games. So, as long as you have the patience and the spot to let a guy simmer that's young, and then it's paying off for me now.
Yeah, I felt like we discussed Fantilli a lot during the offseason of a guy that, you got 1 or 2 last picks. Maybe you take a flyer on Fantilli and you stash him on the bench in case you want to throw him in there. You throw him in there, but I thought more people would be drafting him.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Fantilli to me, I've already talked about him in the Fantasy Learn waiver wire. We've already added him. We are smart enough to know that we draft him with a late rounder. Others have not, and he is still to today. Right, we're 2024. He's 25% owned in Yahoo leagues, so 75% of him is just sitting out here. I think the one thing that maybe holds him, not even his fault, through no fault of his own. 1, he plays in Columbus. That's unfortunate. 2, he only has a center designation. So if you play fantasy leagues where you need a player to be to have multi-position, and let's face it, Yahoo gives it to anybody. Like if you take one face-off, they're like, hey, you're a centerman. You line up on the wing twice, they're like, you're a winger now. Right. So he's lined up as only a centerman. I think the center pool is so large. There's so many, and in some leagues you'll have fewer, you'll need fewer centermen than wingers, right? Because some leagues will have designations for left wingers and right wingers. So I think maybe that's what holds him back just a bit. Again, through no fault of his own, because he has done very well on a team that is, I wouldn't even say below average, but is just not very good at playing hockey. This is not a good hockey team. They are not fun to watch. But Adam Fantilli makes it bearable. And his numbers in December were very, very good. And just maybe coincidence here, but Johnny Gaudreau has looked real good too, because I am part owner of him as well. And Timo Meier. So it's been really, really difficult, since October till now, having both those players on a team. But, Gaudreau's looked better. And I think that is because, Fantilli's been able to help him as well. So if he is sitting out there and you need a centerman because injuries happen, or even just a guy in a little bit of a deeper format, a guy who can take you to the end of the year. If it doesn't work out, you let him go. No harm, no foul. He's not going to take it personally, but he can only make your fantasy team better. He can't make it worse.
He sits on the second power play unit now, but I think that's more because they're just so bereft of talent that they're like, all right, we're going to put you on the second unit. So there's something down there for us for the last 30 to 40 seconds of a power play. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets moved back up to the top unit soon. So top line center there, even on a bad team, if it's a league where plus minus is not there, that also makes him more appealing as well. Now, one last guy to talk about and fantasy focus, fresh off the Winter Classic. We opened talking about that. We'll close here talking about that. Eeli Tolvanen, but left wing and right wing eligibility. Here's the thing with Tolvanen, multi-point game in the Winter Classic. He's been quietly been a top player, top 100 player, I should say. I'm trying to fix the graphic here at the same time. My apologies. I realize his name was spelled wrong. He's got double-digit goals. He's got a plus rating. He's on the power play unit. He shoots the puck. He hits. and he's on that second line for the Kraken. Like, I know they're kind of showed as a third line, but that's really their second with Gord and Bjorkstrand. That's more of their secondary scoring line, especially while they deal with some injuries. But yeah, I think as a depth guy that's going to maybe fill in on the off nights, he's a guy that you'll add, and he's not a guy that I think you'll end up cutting by the end of the season.
Yeah, that's very much fair. Again, on Yahoo, he's 43% owned. Do I think he is superiorly better than Fantilli? No. I just think that because he plays the wing and he can play the left wing or the right wing, right? That he just becomes a lot more appealing because let's face it, Seattle is still a low volume hockey team. They don't take a ton of shots. They don't score a ton of goals. So he's limited by the same things that Fantilli is limited. Yet he is almost, 20% more owned just because he is a winger, just because he has the designation of left and right wing. I do like that he can throw his weight around. So I think that helps in leagues where you need the bangers and you need the rest of it to come out. The opportunity is here for him. I wanted, he can do something. This Seattle team needs guys who can contribute. And the one thing I look at for players is how much ice time are you getting? And he can go through his stretch where he's playing over, 16 minutes a night. We've seen him touch 19 at times. He played 15 in the Winter Classic. There was no need to have him out there a ton. They were up 3-0. Just kind of roll everybody, have fun. But he is a player who can, again, the same thing as Fantilli. He can only help your lineup. He cannot make it drastically worse.
Yeah, he's surrounded. I'm looking on ESPN and some of the fantasy point getters here, surrounded by Mark Scheifele, Jason Robertson, who was a top 10, right? A top 10 draftee. Tavares, Hurdle, Barzal. You're talking Chris Kreider. So he's getting points consistently and helping this Seattle team, who I think they've won their last 5 in a row. They're 7-1-2 in their last 10, and if he can continue what he's doing now and give Seattle that boost that they need, like I said, they're 1 point out of the final spot for the playoffs. And I really do think in the West, it's really 2 teams that are going to kind of shuffle who can get in there, because you look at Vancouver, Colorado, Vegas, Winnipeg, Dallas, and the Kings. Those are the top 6 teams. I think that they are locks, in my opinion, to make the playoffs, which leaves Nashville, Arizona, who I don't trust, but I wouldn't mind seeing Arizona in there. But Seattle can jump those teams. So can Edmonton if they play well, and Minnesota if they can get themselves, which we're going to talk about shortly. But him playing well and helping out Seattle is just what they need right now. And if he can continue to play and Seattle plays well, they may be one of the final teams to make it to the playoffs this year.
Tolvanen also, and Bjorkstrand will get you a similar level of production, but Tolvanen's going to give you some of those banger categories that Bjorkstrand won't. So that's, when you look at their stats, sometimes it's like, what's the difference between the two? And that's basically the difference there. But some guys for you to consider to help fill out the depth of your lineup here as we get into deep into the fantasy regular season here on Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm. Now, Chris, who do you got in your waiver focus for this week?
I had to dig into the deep end here, real deep, because I had no idea who Dennis Hildeby is. I don't even know if I'm saying his name correct, but he is the next man up in Toronto because Ilya Samsonov has proven to everybody that he cannot stop anything that's being directed at him. Now, through no fault of his own, 10% of the time, 90% of the time, though, he is to blame. I'm convinced that if he came to play Thursday night with us, the game would be a lot closer if he was on our team, than it should be. You know what I mean? We should be able to handedly win, and he would not let in a goal. And I feel like it'd be a little bit too close. His confidence is so down, and he looks like a fish out of water in his net. He's not good. So sending him down to the AHL. I mean, somebody tweeted maybe somebody will claim him, and I'm like, nobody's touching him. I think every GM would laugh seeing the paper in the morning from the assistant and go, hey, Ilya Samsonov's on waivers, want to claim? And they'd be like, no, it's fine. Just toss that on the recycling and move on. I have no faith in Martin Jones because it is 2024 and that ship has sailed. And as the president of the Martin Jones hate club, I'm not getting behind him again. So, having him be the goalie for that Toronto team that, again, does not commit to playing well defensively. You can blame Samsonov for a lot of things, but the team in front of him does not help him. And then in turn, since he's not very good, well, then it magnifies the problem. So Hildeby, I found out, is a 22-year-old Swede because I had to dig because I was like, where is this kid from? He's done very well in the AHL, right? 220 goals against average, 919 save percentage, 4th round pick for the Leafs in 2022. He's done well. Now, again, it doesn't mean that he's going to do well in the NHL. But if I am a fantasy team and you are an Ilya Samsonov owner, welcome to the club. So am I. Here is a box of Kleenex because you've been crying a lot. Because my team in that league is not doing very well. We're towards the bottom of the standing. So I would grab him. He's already up to 10% owned in Yahoo League. So there are others who are in this boat here with me. And at this point, Toronto will give anybody a shot. You could get somebody off the street. An emergency backup goalie could get more than one start if they could just stop the puck. That's all they need their goalie to do is stop the puck. Ilya Samsonov has the worst goal saved above expected. He is hurting his team at any given moment possible. So at some point, Samsonov will come back, and maybe the Leafs decide through cap gymnastics that they can carry 3 goalies. But I don't see Samsonov rebounding, or at least the team trying to get him there. I don't think Martin Jones is very good. So the next one up is a young kid who's got nothing to lose and everything to prove. I expect him to at least go out there, and even if he loses, if the Maple Leafs are competitive, that's all I want from him. You got 4 guys that you're paying $40 million. You guys figure it out. We're not putting this on the back of a 22-year-old Swede. He's come here to just solidify things, give yourself a chance to win, and then just move on. But I mean, I'll take the risk. I'll take the risk, right? If you're a team that's doing well, no need, move on, continue with whatever you got. But as somebody who sits like 9 out of 10 in my league with terrible goaltending, I got to do something. I'm already selling pieces. I mean, it is a free-for-all sale. I will get whatever draft picks. This is a keeper league. So I'm out here grabbing goalies who I have to like look up on like Hockey DB because I had no idea who this kid was.
Sometimes you get to that point in the season where you have to like, all right, fine. Like you said, there's nobody in front, like Joseph Wall, fine. Matt Murray, no. Martin Jones, no. Like the opportunity is there for the taking. Like you said, if you can stop a puck, you're going to get another opportunity. If you
he is there until Joseph Wall is healthy, whenever that may be. But the Maple Leafs need to make the playoffs. I know everybody wants to take a turn and say, no, it's fine. They're going to get there. No, they're not, because they have to be better than the Tampa Bay Lightning. They have to be better than the Detroit Red Wings. They have to be better than the Florida Panthers. They got a lot of teams that they need to be better by. And oh, by the way, if that puts you in a wild card spot, you got to worry about every other team in the Metropolitan Division, including the Washington Capitals and the Philadelphia Flyers, who are good hockey teams. So the Toronto Maple Leafs need goaltending. They need it yesterday. We'll see. I'm excited.
Also, the Capitals, to go back to Samsonov, they were a team that needed goaltending, and they just let him go without even a second thought.
Yeah.
So just to kind of put that in perspective. But yeah, Dennis Hildeby there is the Chris's waiver ad for the goaltending. So we gave you a goalie, a defenseman, a winger, and a center. We covered it all on Fantasy Focus today. Now, time to go into the Wild here. Talk a little Minnesota Wild hockey. Things not going great right there in the Twin Cities at the moment for the team. Right now you got Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov and Philip Gustafsson out for at least the next week or two, both dealing with lower body injuries. Matt Zuccarello has been out and continues to be out. Also, Jonas Brodin on that blue line. They did get Jared Spurgeon back, but he's going to need a few games to get that rust off. They had a stretch where they won 11 of 14. Low averages starting to factor in here. They got swept by Winnipeg in a home-and-home this weekend to wrap the year. This was a team we discussed as a team that can make a realistic run at a wild card spot. There's a lot of injuries there. But what is it just a matter of getting healthy, or what else does this team need to do to kind of ensure themselves, into a wild card spot? Because like Anthony said earlier, we're pretty much locking up the top 3 spots in both Western Conference divisions here. So now it's the wild card at play. They've already done the coaching thing where they've changed, and now John Hines is the guy. So what else needs to be done here besides getting healthy?
Definitely going to need some luck because outside of, St. Louis, like I said, Arizona and Nashville, who are the top 2 in the wild card right now. Seattle has turned it around. Edmonton I have more faith in right now than I do Minnesota. And they got a large hill to climb here. I mean, they're only 4 points out of the final spot, but you're talking about leapfrogging 5 teams here, and that's a tough get for any team to do. They're gonna need to be healthy. They're gonna need a little bit of luck, and they're gonna need some. They're gonna have to beat some of these other teams. Their away record, they're 6-10-2. Um, that's not going to get things done. They're good at home. They're just not good on the road. And the other teams that are ahead of them are better on the road than they are. So they're going to have to win some road games here.
Yeah, this is definitely a tough one for them. This seems like a mission impossible almost, because like you already have a hard time scoring goals, and then not having Matt Zuccarello and Kirill Kaprizov in your lineup is going to hurt you tremendously, because now you got to look around and you need the kind of the scoring by committing. You need the Seattle kind of recipe, and I don't think Minnesota has even that to be able to get it done. No offense to Joel Eriksson and Matt Boldy. I think those two can carry it here, but the rest of that lineup is extremely thin up front. Like there's not much to love here. So it's going to be a task. I think defensively, as long as they stay healthy, they could probably keep themselves in games. But at the end of the day, the one thing that's going to really set them back is now we know that Philip Gustafsson's out, not just like for a day or two, but like he's gone for a minute. And Marc-Andre Fleury has not been that good this year. It's a great story. He's fun. His personality, he's future Hall of Famer, first ballot. Nobody's questioning that. But he's 6-2 this year with a 316 goals against average and an 893 save percentage. So that is not good. And it's not Zane McIntyre who's going to get it done. Like he's there to kind of sit and say, hey, let me collect my paycheck and, have fun. And maybe I'll get a rare start when Fleury needs a rest. But Fleury is 40? And now you're thrusting him into the starting role. You say, hey, not only do we need you to start, we need you to be good. And we need you to do that consistently. And he hasn't done that. I think what makes him work in Minnesota is Minnesota's defense, right? They're a structured team. They play good defensively. He split starts with Gustafsson, so I think that helps him at his advanced age. But asking him now to roll out here and lead the way, like that is a tough task for him to do. And I think that's setting him up for failure, again, through no fault of his own, because he is just aging, and as we all will, but he is in a really tough spot along with the team in front of him that's not going to give him a lot of goal support. The window for error, or like the margin for error here, is real. Like it's razor thin.
I'm not going to write them off just yet, but I think there is a lot to over, because I mean, it's just a couple of weeks that 2 of your top players are going to be out, but we're in January, just a couple of weeks. Oh, now we're in mid-January. And if the injuries go on longer than that and linger, now you're looking at February. Now we're looking at All-Star break. Now we're looking at trade deadline. The wild card's still very wide open in the West, but I'm not convinced Edmonton's not going to get one of those spots. So to me, it's really one wild card spot that's open. And like Anthony was saying earlier, Nashville, it could be Nashville, it could be Arizona. Seattle's playing well. I think that last spot comes down to Nashville or Seattle, personally. It's just with Minnesota, and like you said, it's a great story. Fleury just played in his 1000th game. He had the practice with the cane because somebody called him old on the team. All good stuff. But I think you're asking a lot for John Hines to come in here and fix the squad. Now, if everybody gets healthy and all of a sudden things click right away, different story. But a lot has to go right for Minnesota to really be in the playoff picture. And I just don't see that happening anytime soon here. I mean, minus 120 to miss the playoffs over, yes, at minus 106. That's a no-brainer. I'm taking minus 120 all day.
Well, it made them work so well last season, and I was a beneficiary of this because I had them as my goalie tandem, was that Gustafsson kind of took the reins from Fleury, got more playing time where Fleury didn't have to be in every game. And it was kind of more of a 60-40 split between them where, Gustafsson was playing out of this world and he wasn't doing that, came back down to earth a little bit this season. 10-9, got 903 save percentage, but he was way better last year. And he's come back down to earth, and Fleury's going to get more playing chances now. And we'll see what they can do with 40-year-old Fleury, but they're going to need Gustafsson to be healthy and to, step up his game if they have any shot of making the playoffs. I don't think they're totally out, but their chances to get into the playoffs is very hard this season. I think, we would have thought that they would have had a better chance than Seattle did as the season began. But, Seattle's come on here to a point where, they're only a point out. And there's a realistic possibility that they can get, one of the final 2 spots where Minnesota has a lot more teams to climb.
When I look at the one thing that's jumping out at me when I'm looking at the playoff picture now in both the East and the West, the East is just so much deeper in the wild, especially in the wild card mix than the West, because like the East, like let's be real, Ottawa and Columbus not going to the playoffs, not Montreal, not Buffalo. We had higher hopes for Buffalo, not going to be this year. So you can take those 4 teams and write them right out. When you look at the West, we're going to take San Jose and Chicago and Anaheim. Boom, boom, boom. So one less team. But you look at Nashville to Calgary, and that's just like a muck of 7 teams where none of them are. Maybe Nashville is a little bit better than the other rest. Seattle and Edmonton maybe, but it's all kind of just jumbled up there. Where you look at the Islanders have been a good team this year. Tampa's been a good team this year. We're waiting for New Jersey to get right. We're waiting for Pittsburgh to get right. Detroit, we'll see. It just, I don't know. I feel like the East is going to be much more of the East is going to be a dogfight with 2 pits going at it. And the wild card picture in the West is going to be like 2 chihuahuas going at it.
You have 3 teams. You have 3 points separating 6 teams from the final 2 spots in the East. And you can even throw in the Islanders, like you said, Philly, Carolina. The points are very close, about 4 points between all those teams. And that's still an extra 2 spots we're looking at. So like you said, it's going to be a freaking dogfight in the East.
If I'm in the West, I want to win my division because it guarantees me that I play a wild card team. And those wild card teams are they're not in the same class. Like the Avalanche, the Jets, and the Stars are like, they're elite. There's 7 points between the Stars and the Preds. And oh, by the way, like the Stars have 2 games in hand on the Preds. So like it's the Central is set. It's just kind of jockeying for position at that point. Like you don't like if I'm any of those 3 teams, I don't want to play the other 2. I want to play like a wild card team. I want to play those bottom feeder teams where I can just beat up on them in 4 or 5 games and move on and get a week off and heal, especially come playoff time. You need to heal your body, those aches, those pains, those bruises, like you feel them. And the same thing in the Pacific. To me, it is the Canucks, the Golden Knights, and the Kings. There's a little bit more separation between the Golden Knights, right, Canucks, and the Kings. There's 5 points there. I mean, the Kings still they've played 33 games. They're like 5. They have 5 games on Vegas. Like they're just not playing. But there's still, maybe with the exception of the Edmonton Oilers, based on how poorly they started. But even then, I'm still not buying Stuart Skinner or any of that success because that team still looks the same. They're just playing a little bit better. They still need goaltending. So I still think they can get slapped around, in the Pacific Division or by any of these much better hockey teams than them. The teams that like those 6 teams now currently the way they stand in the Central and the Pacific, the top 3, those are good hockey teams, well built. They're deep. It is tough to play against them. And whoever has to play those teams, like if you're not winning your division, man, those are 6-7 game series that are really going to take the gas out of you.
I mean, maybe what they could do is you take like those 6-7 teams we talked about and they make 2 really good teams and maybe that'll have a chance, if the sum of the parts. But I don't know.
Those wild card teams are going to get in to only play 2 home games and then go home.
So if you're one of those Western wild card teams, if you're a season ticket holder for them, you're going to pay a lot of money for the playoff package, but you're going to get a nice refund because you're probably only going to have 2 home games is the point.
You're not buying game 3 at home. You don't have to worry about the second round. That's an illusion. That's pixie dust. Sure. It's not going to be.
And I should probably go back to my analogy earlier with the pits and the chihuahuas. After working in the vet field for 5 years, pretty much every pit bull I met is a sweetheart. And almost every chihuahua I've met's a jerk. So I should probably reverse that analogy earlier in terms of the fighting level. So we'll do that. But I mean, and for us, you talked about before when you thought I was talking about like the Minnesota Wild fan base. I mean, it is the state of hockey. They deserve, they deserve a team that's going to be in the playoffs every year. They deserve somebody like the way Dallas is playing, they deserve a team like that. And maybe they'll get there one day. It's just, it ain't happening right now for them. So we went into the Wild, and we're going to come out of the Wild now, and we're going to do sweater weather as always to wrap things up on Bettor Hockey Now. And we on the theme of the Winter Classic. We did that last week. This was a jersey matchup that I enjoyed going back to the 2019 Stadium Series. A little Keystone State rivalry between Pittsburgh and Philly, both going with kind of like the two-tone look, just the two basic colors that are associated with the team, kind of like the monochrome look here. Of these two, which one would you buy? Let's start with Anthony.
I don't know. They're both kind of boring to me, but if I have to choose one, I guess I'm going to go with Philly. I think that look best suits their logo, since their logo is so simplistic. I don't know. I don't like the way it looks on the Pittsburgh Penguins as much as I would as Philly.
My opinion this week is not as strong as last week, which, by the way, I still stand. I looked at those Vegas jerseys.
Oh, they did not look better on TV at all.
No, they didn't. They were not very good. They resembled the performance of the Vegas Golden Knights. I will say this. If I had to pick one, I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Penguins one. I like the little penguin holding the hockey stick. I like that look. The same one that the Anaheim Ducks have one as well, with the ducks and the sticks. I like the cartoony a little bit look of it. The Flyers logo is fine, and the jersey is fine as well. Like Anthony said, they're very basic, which is okay. To me, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be flamboyant with your jersey. You don't need everything happening on it. I think those are just fine. But to me, it's the penguin holding the stick. That's just a good one for me.
For an event like this, though, like you're okay, like just with the plain like we're talking about Stadium Series or Heritage.
Vegas had a giant V in the middle of their jersey. I will take the penguin every single time. Every single time.
The one thing
it's simple, but it's fine.
I'm not saying to change the logo. But I would. I don't know. I'd like to see more. I feel like the Penguins have had better Stadium Series. They've been in other ones before. They have had better looking Stadium Series, Heritage Classic type jerseys. I think Philly has too.
I think they both have. I agree there. And maybe that's what happened is both these teams have been in so many damn outdoor games. They're like, all right, we're just going with the two-tone look, orange and black, yellow and black, nice and easy. And I'll say this. I'll break the tie here. And even though the Penguins jersey looks like it should be like my high school hockey jersey, if a public high school in New York ever had a hockey team, that'll never happen. As much as I couldn't ever buy a Flyer jersey, that orange and black look sharp. Like that's I got to go with the Flyers here between the two. I mean, it's just like Anthony said, like that's there's the logo right there, the orange and the black. The Penguins a little more detail, usually with some white mixed in there, but yeah, I mean that orange is sharp. And if you're gonna go two-tone, I'll go with the orange and black. It's a little more unique.
I was saying I don't like the two-tone, but when I went with my friend to the last game, and he's a season ticket holder, he kind of he was trying to show me what could be the jersey look for the Devils, and it was a two-toned look with the NJ and not the circle around it, just black and red. So obviously, I'm probably going to buy it.
Of course.
And everything that has been said here just now could go right out the window.
I'll say this: you're talking about the Rangers' new third jersey. I don't like it, but if the outdoor jersey is if it gets me the right way, I'll probably be purchasing that too.
I don't know if they can top was it the one against Philly?
The cream one with.
I don't think they can top that. There was another one that they had that was really nice. That it was just New York, I think, with the like a darker blue. And was that also a?
So for the cream one with the.
That's my favorite one.
That was the Winter Classic in Philly in 2012. Then when they played at Citi Field against the Sabres, that was the navy blue with like the New York diagonal, kind of the basic one that Chris can't stand.
I didn't like the Stadium Series one that they had against the Devils. That white.
That's the only one I don't own. I don't like that one. I feel like I have to own it for the sake of being complete. Mm-hmm. But when those came out, that was the first time that the Rangers released a jersey that I was like, huh. I think I'm going to save myself a couple $100 here. So all right.
Yeah, I think it's. I like the Penguins one. That's it. I feel like you guys are ganging up on me now.
Look, none are great. None are awful. Like if I was a Penguin fan, I would obviously be buying that. If I'm a Philly fan,
You
I'm
just
obviously
described a
buying that one.
Chinese buffet, basically. That's what it is. It's not great, but you're there, so
Yeah.
it'll do the job.
Yep.
Is it the best lemon chicken you ever had? No, but is it going to fill you up? You bet, and at a good price too. All right, so the Flyers take that one 2-1, and maybe we'll do it. I don't know if we'll do all the outdoor jerseys, but I will start looking at the old matchups, and maybe we'll have face-off between those two as we go along here. But always fun to do a little sweater weather to wrap things up on Bettor Hockey Now, on the Bettor Sports Network, and the Fantasy Alarm YouTube pages. But that does it for this edition of BHN, the first of 2024. We'll be back with you next week here. You know, hopefully things are better for Minnesota. Hopefully we got more positive things to talk about and less negative things. But, you know, that's what works for hockey podcasts. But Mr. at Rivera 86 and for Fuzzy Chris 91 Christopher Morais, I'm Adam Bernard at Pucking Thoughts. Hit us up on Twitter, like, subscribe on the YouTube pages as well. And we'll be back with you next week here on BHN, on BSN, and Fantasy Alarm.
Bettor Hockey Now is on the Bettor Sports Network.